Okay, I'm going to show you how to make a Fisherman rib with seed stitch edging 32 ounce jar insulator. And if you're interested in felting, you can make this and go the next size down. You can actually process it and felt it, and you'll go the next size down. Found that out by accident, so if you're working with wool, you can do that. Alright, so I'm going to take my X loom, and yes, I have been known to do this stuff on a regular loom, but normally I start from top and work to the bottom. Okay, and the X loom will get more of a fitted look about it. Okay, so what I'm using is Wonderland Yarns Pigments of Imagination Cheshire Cat. It has approximately 128 yards. It's fingering weight with all 5 skeins, 640 yards, and 100% superwash merino wool. This is what I got at my local yarn shop. So it's really nice. You can see it has really pretty colors. So I've already undid a hank and actually wound it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a drawstring cast on. Now you'll notice this X loom is a little different. This was my original design of the X loom, but I found it's more difficult to get in these corners. So what I've done is already set it up to where the max you can decrease down to on the regular ones. Okay, this one will allow you to do it for 14, get down to 14, but I'm not going to show you that method. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to count out 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 and put a marker on that 12 peg. Now if you're wanting to try to make this on a regular loom, you can, that's circular, without doing all this increasing and all that jazz. But if you're to do it, I would suggest starting from the top and working to the bottom. Alright, and I'll kind of explain how to do that, but you'll want to work with 60 pegs and you'll want to do a cast on. Okay, and of 60 pegs if you're doing a regular loom. Okay, the process is going to be kind of similar, except for your bottom and tops are going to have some decreasing and increasing with the X loom. But again, you can make this on a regular loom. You'll just need to start at the top and work to the bottom. So what you'd want to do if you're working with a 60 peg, just go ahead and do a cast on of your choice. You can do a chain cast on, but you are going to need add elastic to the top of it. Okay, but if you're working on this loom, you want to set your pegs up to 24, which is the max down, and then you want to drawstring cast on. So you're just going to weave your way around. Okay, okay. So you weave your way around. It should be pretty easy, and I'm working circularly for now. Now if you are working on the regular loom, when you're going to be starting off working flat, so you know. So once you do your cast on, you're going to be working flat. Alright, okay, last one to get you around. Okay, next thing, after you've gotten around once and done your drawstring, what you want to do is you want to just knit your way around. Okay, so you're going to knit one row. Now the pattern we're going to be doing is you're going to increase a row and knit a row, okay, until you get up to approximately 60 pegs. It will not be an even 60 pegs, it'll be basically 64 pegs, but 60 pegs is what you're going for. Okay, and what the patterning is going to be is a knit a row and increase a row, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and then you'll do it until you have your total amount. Now you can do this in the reverse method if you have complications with increasing. You can do this in reverse. The only increasing you'd have to do is at the very beginning, and that's the reason why I didn't do it at the very beginning, because you start off with a seed stitch, and granted you're only going to increase like 2. It can be more complicated. Okay, alright, so we've worked our way around, okay, once, and now what we want to do is we want to do our pattern setting, where we're going to increase a row and then knit a row until we're up to 60. Okay, so you're going to knit to your first wedge peg, and what you want to do is you want to take that first stitch that's sitting right there, take that first stitch sitting right there, pull it back over the peg, do not release it, place the working yarn in front of the peg, place that stitch you were holding back where it belongs, pick up the stitch you just made, put it onto the previous peg, knit your wedge pegs. Then you're going to pull back your previous stitch here, wrap it to the front, place the stitch back, pick up, move it to the previous peg, and then knit. Okay, now what you want to do is loosen your wedge, move it to the next available pegs, take the stitches you just made off and put them on to those empty pegs. Okay, and okay, that looks twisted. Untwist it. There we go. Okay, and you want to move them onto the empty pegs. Okay, and you're going to do that with all 4 wedges, and I'm going to show you how to do that one more time. Alright, so once you get to your first wedge peg, you want to pull back that previous stitch, place the working yarn in front of the peg, replace the stitch you've been holding, pick up the stitch you just made, and move it to the previous peg. Then you want to knit your wedge pegs. Then you want to pull back your previous stitch on the next peg, place the working yarn in front of the peg, and then put that stitch back that you just pulled over. Place the new stitch you just created onto the wedge peg, and then knit that peg there. Okay, then you're going to take and move the wedge down 1, and then you're going to place those stitches into that section there, filling in those empty pegs. Need to be moved down a little bit more. Okay, and you can snug up the stitch a little bit, and you're going to do this on all 4 wedges. Okay, and then when you complete the row, you're going to knit it. Alright, now if you're starting the reverse of this, know you're going to be working flat, and you'll know to start the patterning when we get to our seed stitch, to start doing the bottom of the mug. Okay, so go ahead and do your drawstring cast on, and you can skip this whole section. Alright, and want to move to where you're just starting the seed stitch. Okay, and then when I get to the other end, and I'll explain to you how to finish up if you're doing it in reverse. Okay, alright, so go ahead and pause the video and get your increase row done, and then the next thing you're going to do is a just normal knit row. Okay, and you're just going to keep doing this until you have your 60 stitches or 64 stitches. Okay, And you'll notice I did that marking here, alright, on purpose. Alright, so go ahead and get your wedge increase row done, and then I will show you what the next row is, and then you're just going to repeat this until you have gotten to your peg count, which we marked already, which I would suggest doing. It's marking it. And then we will be ready to start our stitch patterning that's going to go up the side of the mug. And that's when y'all that are doing it on the regular loom is going to check in. Okay, you're going to check in at this point. Alright, so I'm so close, I'm just going to finish this up and show you what that next section is. We'll just speed the video up. Okay, at this point we have completed our increase row, and the next thing we want to do is go in and do a regular knit all the way around. Okay. And what you want to do is you want it to be alternating between the regular row and an increase row until you achieve your number of pegs that you are after. Okay, and that shouldn't take very many rows. You should get up there fairly quickly, and this is going to be the bottom of the mug, okay, the 32-ounce mug. And this is actually based off of the Pioneer Woman mugs. I love drinking out of those, and if you're like me, you try to avoid plastics and some metals, and so if you're wanting to start drinking your water out of glass but you hate the condensation, these really reduce the mess by a massive amount. You can just stick with practically a coaster and you're not going to get water all over you and everywhere and that kind of thing. So if you want to drink out of glass but you don't want to wear the water as you're drinking it because of the condensation, you should try making you one of these, and the water will stay colder longer. I've been using these for about 2 years now, and I love mine. I've made 3 of these things, and I alternate them out between the 2 mugs that I have, and they're really great for if you don't want to be wearing your water. Okay, alright, so go ahead and pause the video, and when we come back you should be in this area and ready to start the actual stitch patterning. Okay, we finished the bottom. We're up to our 64 stitches, and actually instead of it being 12 from your 24, because I can go down to 14, it needs to be actually 14 when you take it out so that you can get 64, but if you're working with 60 it's okay too. So as you can see, this is what it is felted. And right now we're fixing to start on this section doing a seed stitch, but you can see how smooth it is on the bottom. It was really smooth even when I had it regularly, you know, without the shrinking it. You're going to do 3 sets of a seed stitch on the bottom in the round, but if you're working at the top, you're going to do 3 sets of seed stitch flat. But the first thing you're going to do after you do your cast on with a row of knit, you're going to do an E-wrap chain, and I'll kind of show you how to do that so that you know how to do a buttonhole. But you're not going to do this. So if you're doing this from down top to bottom, this is what you're going to do. You're going to cast on, okay, and then you're going to do a row of knit, alright, and then you're going to do an E-wrap chain of 10 to 15. So what you're going to do is you're going to basically keep E-wrapping. Let me mark that stitch so I know I can bring it back, because I'm going to show y'all if y'all are doing this the other route, okay, because the bulk of it is the same pretty much up and down, okay. But keep this in mind, you're going to be doing this at the end too, where you're going to start working in the round on this section too. So if you're going to do this in reverse. So let me put a stitch marker on that so I can just pull it back up and take out. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to do an E-wrap chain, and what that does is you're going to just E-wrap the same peg however many times. Usually it's about 10 times. So there's 1, 9, and 10. And that creates a buttonhole. So whichever side you're on, just start off with an E-wrap chain of 10, and then you just continue on the row, and you'll see that that has created a buttonhole. So if you're starting from the top and working your way to the bottom, go ahead and when you start doing your seed stitch, E-wrap chain 10, okay, and then you're going to start with a purl, alright? Okay, so I'm going to put my, seems to have gotten caught up. A lot of effort to try to show you how to do that. Okay, there we go. Now you're just going to put that stitch back on. Alright, now, if you're working like we've been working from bottom to top, then you're going to be working in the round. Alright, so of course my first stitch is a knit and purl. Alright, so you're going to knit and purl all the way around. For a row, and this is a 2-row set. Seed stitch is always a 2-row set. Alright, if you're doing it flat, you know, you do the E-wrap chain first, and then you're going to purl knit all the way around. Okay, and your last one should probably be a purl. Alright, then you're going to be starting the opposite of what you finish with. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and do your knit purl, or if you started with a purl knit all the way around. You're going to do the opposite of what you finished, and I'll explain that when I get to the other side. Okay, let's go ahead and pause the video, get this row done, and I'll show you the second row of a seed stitch set. Okay, if you're working flat and you've ended here and your last one is a purl, then what you're going to start with is a knit, or you can slip the first stitch and start with a purl knit all the way around. Okay, that's if you're working flat. If you're not working flat and you're working in the round, our first stitch here was a knit. Now we're going to purl. Okay, so we're going to start off with a purl and a knit. Purl and knit. And you're going to do that all the way around, and then you're going to repeat this 2-row set for a total of 3 sets or 6 rows. And so you're going to have 6 rows. And then what we'll do is we'll start the fisherman rib, which is what you see here. This rib stitch is a brioche. Alright, so we're going to do a fisherman rib, and we'll go from there. Okay, so if you're doing flat, back and forth seed stitch for 6 rows or 3 total sets, and if you're doing it this way, you're going to work in the round for 6 rows or 3 total sets of seed stitch. Okay, so pause the video, get that much done, and we'll come back and start working flat and be doing the fisherman rib here. See if I can to focus on the fisherman rib. Alright, so pause the video, get that much done, and we'll come back. Alright, I'm ready to start working flat, back and forth. You can see there's your bottom. So go focus in on that some more. As you can see, there is your bottom, nice and smooth. And if you look at the bottom side, all nice and smooth. Okay, so we're going to start working flat. And what I'm going to do is a Fisherman rib stitch, okay, and it's technically a brioche stitch. And what you want to do is you want to E-wrap that first peg and purl. E-wrap and purl. E-wrap and purl. You're going to do this all the way around until you get to here. And this is going to be the same for if you're doing top down or bottom up, okay? This is just going to be the same. Alright, so you're going to E-wrap, purl all the way around, alright? And when you get to these last pegs, typically that would be a purl. What you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap it so that you can slip it the next time, alright? And that'll keep a nice smooth edging, okay? So go ahead and pause the video, E-wrap and purl all the way around, and then I'll show you how to finish up this row and start the next row, okay? Okay, this patterning is a 2-row set. Now, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to E-wrap the last 2 pegs, alright, on that row. Next thing I want to do is start by slipping and then slipping again and purling, okay? At this point you want to slip every E-wrap peg and purl, except you will E-wrap the last stitch over here, okay? So you're going to go slip behind the peg, as you can see, and purl. Alright, so you're going to skip all the E-wrap pegs. And slip behind the peg and purl. Slip behind the peg and purl. And you're going to do this all the way around until you get to here, and I'll show you how to finish this row up. Then you're going to repeat this a total of I think 6 more rows, so you have a total of 8 rows. So you're going to repeat this a total of 6 more rows when you complete this, okay? So go ahead and slip your E-wrap pegs and purl your purl pegs all the way around, and then when you get over to here, I'll show you how to finish up this row. Okay, so I've purled this peg here, and typically I would slip it, but I can't slip that last peg, so I actually need to E-wrap it. Alright, so we're going to E-wrap it and toss it over. Okay, you're going to repeat this 2-row set that we just did 6 more rows, or 3 more times. And you're going to have a total of 8 rows, and then I will need to show you how to do a buttonhole, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to slip that first stitch, and you're going to purl the next stitch. Then you're going to E-wrap and purl and E-wrap and purl. And you're going to do this all the way around, and then you're going to do that slip. You're going to E-wrap those last 2 pegs, then you're going to slip that first peg and slip the second peg and purl, slip, all the way around. Okay, you're going to repeat this for a total of 8 rows, alright, or 4 sets, total of 4 sets. We've already done 1. We're going to do it 3 more times with this 2-row repeat, okay? So when we come back, we'll be ready to add a buttonhole and then work from there. Okay, you should have finished up your 8 rows and ended back up over here. Alright, and as you can see, it's starting to work its way down. Okay, so at this point you want to do a buttonhole, so you can add a button and attach it better. So what you want to do is you want to E-wrap chain 10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, look, there you have created a little buttonhole. Okay, if you want to use smaller buttons, you can do 6 rather than 10, and that'll create some smaller buttonholes for you. Okay, and at this point, you want to go about doing like you've been doing, where you normally slip the stitch, but you've just done the E-wrap chain to create a buttonhole, and then you're just going to continue on your stitch patterning like we've been doing. Okay, so purl E-wrap all the way around, and when you get to the end, you'll end up E-wrapping the last stitch rather than purling it. And then you're going to slip, and then slip that one, purl, slip all the way around, and you're going to continue what you were doing, and you're going to do that for a total of 8 rows again. Okay, so you're going to do that 8 rows again. You do another buttonhole, 8 rows again, another buttonhole, and then you'll do another 8 rows, and then we're going to be switching and going to the top. And if you're doing the top bottom, then you're going to probably start working circularly like we did originally with our seed stitch. Okay, so then you'll switch up and do a seed stitch. Alright, and so what you want to do is, we've just completed a set with the buttonhole. You're going to do that 2 more times. Okay, then you're going to do a set of 8 without the buttonhole, and then you're going to be ready to do your 6 rows of a seed stitch. Now I'm going to be decreasing with my seed stitch on my 6 rows, so that when I go to actually do the last buttonhole on my bind off, it hugs the top of the mason jar without having to add elastic. But if you're making it the other way, you will need to add elastic around the top of it, and I have a video on showing how to add elastic to your cast on loops so that you can have that and it snugs around, and I generally find that that helps a lot when keeping it nice around the bottom of the lip where the lid is. Okay, so again, do the 8 row set, and then do a buttonhole, and then continue another 8 rows, and then do a buttonhole, and then another 8 rows. Okay, because the idea is to have 3 buttonholes between the actual handle on your 32-ounce mason jar, and then to have a space between where the actual handle is, and then another buttonhole at the very end. So again, you do 8 rows after this buttonhole, then create another buttonhole and do another 8 rows, create a buttonhole, do another 8 rows, do another 8 rows. Okay, then you're going to do your seed stitch. Alright, so pause the video, get that much done, and then we'll come back and then we'll finish up, and I'll show you how to decrease on this so that you have a tighter area. If you are doing it the other way on a regular round loom, then you'll want to do you want to start working circularly like we did originally, since we worked from the bottom to the top. Okay, it's time to finish up this pattern. Here's your bottom, which you'll eventually close that off. Here's your seed stitch. Here is your fisherman rib, and you have 1, 2, and 3 buttonholes, as you can see. And then of course, after the last buttonhole created, I did 8. That was 8 rows. Alright, So at this point, what we're wanting to do is a seed stitch for 6 rows while decreasing, okay? And we're only going to decrease a couple of times so that we have a nice area that's tight around the top of the jar. Now, if you are doing this top down, at this point you want to start doing in the round seed stitch for 6 rows, okay? And then you'll do a fine gauge drawstring bind off to finish, okay? So that's how you do this from top down, but we're doing this from bottom up, okay? But that's how you can create this from top down using a regular loom. Okay, we're still slipping the first stitch, and we're going to go in and we're going to do a knit and purl. Alright, but we're also going to go ahead and we're going to decrease down 1, alright? So you're going to move your slider down. And the great thing about seed stitch and decreasing, it's really easy. It doesn't get affected like doing a rib stitch does. Rib stitch really gets affected by decreasing. Pull that down. So you're only going to do this 3 times. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and decrease all your wedges, and then you'll do your seed stitch all the way around, and on the wedge pegs you will continue the process. You're just going to do the 2 stitches together. So it's purl 2 together, you purl 2 together. If it's knit 2 together, then you knit 2 together. We're going away from the E-wrap at this point, and we're just going back into flat knit. Okay, because the bulk of this is a brioche, and that does affect it. Alright, and we're going to pull that down. Okay, now, back to what we were doing here. So, we started off with a knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, and then purl the 2 together, and then knit the 2 together, and then purl, and knit, and purl, and knit, and purl, and knit. Okay, so keep this going all the way around, and whatever it is next, you're either going to knit the 2 together or purl the 2 together. Just continue with the pattern. When doing a seed stitch, it actually doesn't mess it up to do it this way, okay? Which I kind of really like, the fact that you can decrease a seed stitch and it's really not difficult. It's super easy. Unlike the rib stitch, it's a lot more complicated. Okay, so go ahead and finish the row, and then I'll start you on the next row, and then you're going to repeat this total of 3 decreases, and then a single row back, and they'll be ready to bind off. Okay, let's go ahead and pause the video, get that row done, and then we'll come back. Okay, I'm around to the other side. My last thing should have been a knit. Alright. So at this point, you're going to continue the process. You slip the first stitch, and then you're going to knit and purl all the way around. Okay, so it should have been a purl, knit, and then slip, knit, and purl all the way around, no decreasing. Okay. Alright, so what you want to do is just do a normal row, and then on the next row you'll decrease again, and then you'll do a normal row, and then on the next row you'll decrease, and then you'll do a normal row, and then you'll be ready to bind off, because you're only going to do 6 rows. Okay. Alright, so pause the video and get your 3 decreases done, and be ready to go in and bind off, and that's when we're going to do our last buttonhole. Okay, so we'll do our last buttonhole and then bind off, and then all you have to do is sew on your buttons, and that's it. You find the button size you like, and it should fit right around the jar. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, get that much done, and then we'll be ready to bind off. Okay, we've done our seed stitch, and we've decreased down 3 times with our wedges, and now we're ready to finish up, and we're going to do a E-wrap chain 10, and then we're going to be binding off. So I'm going to go 1, 2, okay, then at this point you're going to start binding off. So you're going to toss the next loop over, go back 1, toss the bottom loop over, and move over. Everything else should be normal at this point when it comes to binding off. So knit, move over, toss bottom loop over. And you want to do this fairly loose. You don't need to do it tight. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video and get your bind off done, and then we will be done with the knitting part, and that's when you want to line your sides up, sew the buttons on, lines up with the sides, and then you're done. So you want to close off the bottom, tuck in your end at the top, add your buttons, and if you did this from top to bottom, you'll want to close off your bottom using the fine gauge drawstring bind off, and then what you'll want to do is you'll want to add a thin piece of elastic to the top, and I'll include how to do that in the info box below. I have a video that shows how to do that.